We flipped a coin, okay? You and me. You and me. Coin flip is sacred.
Y'all ready for a show today, baby? Go time, baby. We've been waiting all week for this. This is where it happens right here, man. We man up, we stand up. We man up, we stand up. We're all we got. We're all we got. We're all we got. We're all we got. We're all we got.
Hit anything that moves. We're playmakers, man. We advance, nothing less.
You don't like this? Trust me, you don't like it.
We're between the white lines. This is football. Welcome to the big league. I won the toss. I took the football. Drive it down that throat.
Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your skull?
Hey, every season is full of defining moments. Let's make this day a defining moment for us in our quest.
Game time! Game time!
Welcome everybody to another episode of the CoinFlip NFL Week 3. We have a action-packed pod here today, a lot to discuss. Obviously, a lot of injuries in the NFL last week across the board. So we're going to get right into it. First, quick recap of last week was pretty brutal to me. Although a lot of the stuff I liked and faded worked out, I happened to play almost every single person that hit the injury bug. Barkley being probably the biggest hit. Quite literally was probably my worst finishing positions, not dollar-wise. I wasn't really heavily invested because of the U.S. Open. Thank God, because I got, almost DFL in most contests I was in. Had Barkley, Adams, the 1 week I play CMC because of the low ownership, like I talked about on the Audible Sunday morning. All these guys get hurt, although CMC didn't do terrible as far as points goes because he got hurt later. But Barkley, I was watching that live and saw, as soon as I saw it, I was like, yep, his knee's gone. So it was a brutal DFS week. Betting wise, I think I went 2-4. Got a couple of bad beats there late. The Bucks was one with the Fournette. I'm going to score with under 2 minutes to go, 55-yard touchdown run. If he gets tackled or just kind of kneels or whatever, like some of the other guys do, they run out of the clock, we cover there. It's a 3-3 week. So take it as it is. College was a little bit, not much better, but 3-4. Down week overall. The T20s and stuff and golf helped save a little bit, made a little bit of profit on that, but back at it again, got a few plays going tonight. Pretty nice Thursday night altogether. I think the matchup of the Jags and Dolphins will be interesting and intriguing with the quarterbacks, at least. I don't think it'll be boring. I would lean the over if I'm going anywhere there. Pretty good college football game. I don't know how inverse most people are getting with college football, but South Alabama is on the rise. Played well their first 2 weeks. UAB, but both teams are coming in with their backup quarterbacks. So intriguing to see how that goes. I have a couple opinions there. DK contests aren't great for it, but I'm throwing a little bit in just to have some action. And so altogether, pretty, decent Thursday night entertainment. NBA has, I don't even know which game it is on, but there's a playoff game. I think it's probably the Lakers because the Heat was last night. I'll be more focused on watching both the football games. In general, a lot to learn from last week, but then a lot to digest when it comes to how are people going to react to the backups that are taking the place of some of these injuries. So we'll get into all that. First, go to gupscorner.com/affiliate, our 2020 site sponsor, Super Draft. You can deposit up to $1,000 right now, get 50% match. Use the code GUP. There's a link on the website there you can use as well if you want to get that match, which is great. You put whatever you put in, you get 50% up to 1,000. So if you put 1,000 in, you get $500 match, $100, $50 match, so on and so forth. Great, smaller kind of, if you struggle with the salary cap type stuff and just trying to learn about construction in a way, a little bit different over there with the multiplier, and you can literally play whatever guys you want. There's no restrictions. It's just a math deal of figuring out where's the multiplier come into. Our tools are up on NFL now. We've had a lot of great compliments. We just lost them last night. The foundation piece, the stat engine, is now live. Continue to build for there, but it's got tremendous information, that's already received a lot of good feedback compared to what we had last year. And this is just the base piece. So we'll continue to build from there. college, probably aiming towards next week to launch something similar. Bobby continues to release his special reports that give you all the information that will be in the tools eventually, just trying to build that foundation piece. The Green Machine lineup builder has both NFL and college football as well, continuing to tweak that, and we'll upgrade that as far as being able to, put stacks and rules and stuff like that in as we continue to progress the website in general. Make sure you rate and review us on iTunes. There'll be some giveaways as we, sounds crazy enough, we're probably 5-6 weeks away from the Masters. I think next week or the week after we will start probably next week, our kind of big push towards the Masters, and we're going to have big contests and giveaways for all of that. I will tell you, as I always do, the two best ways to get into those entries always is rate and review us on iTunes and subscribe on YouTube. Like, comment, anything you do if you're watching that helps us out a lot. And then we'll have other things like we typically do for the big giveaways, 3 or 4 different ways to get entered. We'll give away tons of prizes, especially for the Masters. It's the biggest golf event of the year, not used to being in November. So it'll be a little bit different this year. We can, do some NFL and kind of dual roll some stuff there. That'll be exciting. Listener League is up. I'll include it in the pod tonight when I post it. Last week's winners in Colina 20, Poor CU 314NE, and S2 Golf. Those are the top 3. As I mentioned last week, the top 3 each week get into the Listener League, kind of winners league, tournament of champions, if you will. First place, I'll go over his lineup. He had a solid lineup: Prescott, Drake, Sanders, Ridley, Cooper, Lamb, Jonnu Smith, Jones, and the Dolphins D. I couldn't talk myself into going into the Atlanta Dallas stacks, and for a while it looked like that was going to be a good thing. Atlanta jumped out 21-0, a bunch of fumbles. The only thing in the back of my head was like, well, now Dallas has to throw, and it's just a matter of how they get there. Obviously, you could have hurt Zeke a little bit being down that much, but he still did all right. And then Dak just went off, and so that, what I would say is probably the chalkiest stack, wind up paying off. However, you probably did it, and I virtually completely faded that game. So it's just, not that I was in any kind of way, shape, or form the way I went, even the fades and pivots I did. Too many injuries last week that I was a part of that was brutal. And, in football, that's just part of it. It's the difference in golf. Besides a cut or a very, very rare withdrawal, your guys are going to get the same quote unquote at bats. They're going to get 36 holes. You make the cut, they're going to get 72 holes. And it's a matter of, the biggest deal is getting the 6 best golfers under your price range to make the cut and make a run on the weekend. Whereas football, 2 plays in, it'd be done. Barkley, what he had 2 carries, maybe a target or 2. And now the season's done, but for that game, and, I was pretty heavy on him at 5%. I don't regret it at all. You can't predict injuries, so you just kind of swallow it, move on, which is why bankroll management is huge, especially in football, because as sharp as everybody wants to think they are in the industry, there's a reason Vegas is what it is and these bookmakers are where they are. More times than not, the book's going to win. Or how's that affect DFS? Well, in the sense that we all think X is going to happen. Derrick Henry's going to go off. Well, he got all the touches, but didn't do nothing with them really last week. And you don't, in golf, I guess you can a little bit more, it's vulnerability, because every single day in golf is just, you have no idea what someone's going to shoot. And we damn sure don't today, because we're doing virtual learning this week because the number spiked here. And I went in to help kiddos for an hour, and when I went in, Chris Kirk was 7 under and Bird was 8 under, which are 2 of my core pieces this week. And when I came out and checked my phone, Bird was -4 and Kirk was -1. I was like, holy hell, what happened? These guys just fell apart. And then I look and I was like, well, they were never that number. And I guess, this is over. It's in the Dominican Republic, all that. Whoever's keeping the scores obviously either got confused or typed in wrong or whatever. Hopefully it was just that group. Like I was big. Ricky Barnes was my dock of the week, 0.8% ownership. I'm massively overweight on him. He shot 5 under. That was this morning. So far, every time I check, he stayed 5 under, but you kind of get that, you don't know now because we get to watch it. So at least we know a little bit better right now. But, this morning it was like you started seeing all these numbers change out of nowhere, and it was confusing. But anyways, long story short, with football, it can change on a dime, and so there's no good week to think you have the nuts and go all in. I mean, you really got to be disciplined on your bankroll, and when you hit your week, let it be a good week and move on. If you don't, we talked about it before. You can go back to the educational pods, Tambo, even Bucks back in the day, and in the mindset is you're almost trying to break even probably most weeks if you're GPP type style, and maybe you throw cash in there. And I flirted with the idea of doing cash in NFL. I never do it in golf, but I could see a hedge possibility to save some of those weeks, because I'm trying to hit 3, maybe 4 weeks a year in NFL out of 16. And I manage, I bankroll for that. So out of 16 weeks, when I get done, if I hit 3 or 4 with the way I build, I should be well up on the year. The earlier you hit, the better, because now you've got that safe comfort zone. You've made your hit, kind of adjust your bankroll and go from there. But when you're just grinding, and so much unknown this year, it's certainly imperative that you stick to your bankroll in football, because anything can happen. And right now with injuries and lack of preseason and all kinds of things you could factor in, it's certainly no guarantee of anything. But great week for those 3 guys. Make sure you get in the listener league. It's 200, I think, this week. It is up already on Twitter. If you missed it, and it'll also be included in the podcast this week. Sunday, 13 games, but luckily we get 8 early, 5 late, so a little bit more balance there. DFS wise, I don't mind all the early games because you don't have to worry about as many inactives. But watching wise, the last 2 Sundays have been miserable, because when there's only 3 games on, there's a lot more. Not very much action. Last week wasn't as bad because you could turn the golf on, for me at least. And we'll be able to watch golf this Sunday, but obviously US Open a little bit better than but if you have sweat going in golf, it really doesn't matter. But I like the 8-5 setup. As far as viewing goes, spread it out a little bit. And, the late slate at 5 games I actually like, because you get that 3 o'clock slate. You've already done most of the research for those teams anyways. You can try to leverage off some plays, and maybe guys jumping on quote unquote chalk at that late slate. I've actually done better just playing when that late slate is 4 or 5 games. I do really well compared to when it's 2 or 3. So that's, luck or whatever you want to call it. I do enjoy the 5-game slate on the late side. If you're new, I do the playbook. I go position by position, get my played, fades, and values. Then I do a stack betting contest, cover spreads, dog of the week, survivor pick leans, and then we get out of here. I try to keep this 30, 40 minutes. My idea is 30, 35, mainly because I just know there's so much content out there. And so I would like for people that are trying to squeeze in as many pods to be able to go, all right, hey, go listen to Gups. Because you can listen, if you do 1.5X, you can listen to it in 20 minutes or so at the gym. But even if you listen to it normal, a 30, 40-minute max pod is not bad compared to some of these that could be hour and a half, 2 hours or whatnot. Not that they're good, bad, or indifferent. I just we're trying to get into that market, big saturated market. And I like for people to be like, hey, you can listen to this, get enough value out of it. Then if you're inclined and you want to join, come and join us. You can use GC 15% off right now. We'll start a big push for the Masters. The tools are out. The golf tools are phenomenal. We continue to add to that. The NFL and college football tools are just going to get better. I put a big, long announcement out last week, and a lot of the members wrote back, and they were appreciative of it. We were honest. We said where we're going, and we're not punting 2020, but we're building the foundation this year because there was so much unknown, especially college football. We put our resources in the stuff we could bank on, which was golf, the Green Machine, NFL foundation, and then when we get to 2021, God help us all that the world's normal, quote unquote, again, a year from now, we'll be on all cylinders going into that year from everything we build this year as a foundation piece, because we brought everything in-house this year. Everything's being built in our side, in our servers, on our deal. And so I'm excited about it. And, 6 weeks from now, it's going to be better than it is today. And we continue to prove that and show that. So that's the exciting piece. Let's get into the playbook. Give me a little drink real quick. By myself, it kind of sucks sometimes. Quarterbacks, no real injury concerns. We already know who's out. So I kind of go through the injury concerns, and then as of today, everybody that's in. I don't think there's any question. The guys that are out are pretty much already out. And I changed it a little bit. I want to focus on when I say plays, and I'll talk to it. I don't want to double up where I get to the end and I'm just regurgitating stacks and all that. I want to talk about plays that I like. I will hit on verbally, yes, I like Kyler. Yes, I like, Russell Wilson type. And I'm trying to look for plays that borderline between value, and these are good. I mean, if you want to play the obvious, then, I'll, if I don't like it, I'll talk about it in a fade. But, otherwise, if you want to play Kyler, he's 18%. In my projections right now, could change. Go ahead. Like, I'm all about it, especially quarterback. Like 18% is a lot, but it's not too bad. Russell's 13%, then 11, 10, then 7. It goes down from there. So, quarterbacks normally get spread out between 5, maybe 8 at the most on most ownership. But a play I like this week is Cam. Right now I'm showing him at 7%. The Raiders, coming off the high, big win on Monday. Decent game total, 47.5. Pats are up, favored by 6 right now. I think Cam, because of the upside, I'm getting a discounted price and ownership at a guy that I don't think we've seen a ceiling. And the more gelling he gets with his wide receiver core, if they stay healthy, Harry, Edelman, those guys, the better. We'll see if they get James White back. Horrible tragedy with him. Tweeted about it Sunday. If you watched the game, you saw it. I don't think his mom has passed, but his dad did die in a car wreck Sunday. Mom's in, at the time, intensive care. So who knows if he's going to play or not. He stayed with the team, which I respect. I think Kraft offered to fly him privately to his parents right then and there, and he said, "No, I'm going to stay with me." He didn't go to the game, but he stayed there to fly home with the team. Probably wanted to be around his brothers, which, and being in that situation, not that situation, but being around in that situation, if I was there, I'd probably do the same. I'd want to be with the guys I'm closest with, that you spend all the time with, and probably for that consulting and stuff. And then, once I get home, I'll, fly back I assume he went back to Florida, but we don't know if he's playing or not. It will only help Cam if he does. More check down, out of the backfield stuff. But the rushing upside in there is just there. And not that it's not there with Josh Allen. Even Prescott had 3 rushing touchdowns last week. Wilson can scramble at times. Murray, we know. Murray, though, I don't want to say I'm not as high on. I would play him any week. We can just fast forward to week 16. I'm still going to say play him. There's Homer in there a little bit, Boomer Sooner, stuff like that. But this week, the Lions are going to pressure him as much as he's seen the first 2 weeks. So I think he can stay in the pocket. So he could probably have a better passing game. I just don't know if the running is going to necessarily be there. And I lean Drake, which we'll get to in a little bit, to have a bigger game than what we've seen. And so if I can get Cam, who I don't think many will go to because Kyler's only $100 more. So I think most people will be like, I'll take Kyler in the upside, which is why he's 2.5x the ownership. I like Cam this week. I think he's at home. In general, Belichick bounces back extremely well from a loss. So I think that's a positive as well. I just think it's a good play. And you can play him naked. He's obviously a quarterback you can play naked. I like N'Keal Harry. Let's hope he plays. He's questionable, but a lot of these guys, because there's no longer the probable on the NFL injury report, you see a lot of questionables, but there's, by Sunday, most of these guys are going to play. I'll try to hit on someone that I think is truly questionable. I don't think N'Keal Harry is. In Edelman, I just think that every game they play, it's going to be better for Cam as he gets more comfortable in that offense. My next play is Dak. I tried to get too cute last week, I think, and fading all the chalk. And I guess I had to get out of my golf mindset and get into football where, and I do some of this in golf, but you don't have to fade everything. You can play the guys you want to play and then be different, or play mini stacks, which I did talk about, especially on the Audible Sunday with the private premium members. And I just went ahead and faded that whole game. And I think I've done that too many times where there are good pieces and you can still play them and be extremely different because you have so many positions that you could play some low-owned guys that if they go off, even with the chalk, you're still alive. Because if you fade all the chalk and that game hits, you're dead. I mean, there's very rarely a way to get out of it when all that stuff, because there's too many combinations out there, especially these big old GPPs to make it hit. I was going back and forth between Dak and Russell Wilson. I think both are in play. Obviously, they're playing each other. Dak's $100 cheaper. Wilson's showing 3% more ownership. I think Wilson has a a step back game, and it could be a lot more running because I think Seattle will be able to run the ball a little bit better on Dallas. They may not need Wilson to press as much. They do seem to be opening it up with Wilson more, and they certainly have an advantage against the secondary, and the linebackers in general with how beat up Dallas has been, already through 2 weeks. But I lean Dak there. I think whichever way you go between Cooper, Gallup, Lamb, I think they're going to expose what I think is a fairly weak secondary. That's just kind of, even Cam threw for over 300, maybe even 400, but 300 yards for sure last week. Nowhere near the wide receivers that Dallas has. And especially the big key for me, and let's just keep that in mind as we get to Sunday, is do they get Smith back at tackle? Didn't play last week. Dak still did well. They get him back. I like Dak even more, and especially a little bit less ownership. My fade this week, which is kind of ironic because I'm actually leaning towards the Bills on the betting side just because of the spot. But I think the Rams are going to be able to control Allen's running, scrambling a little bit more than most. Pretty good defensive line, pretty good defense in general. I think Allen will do enough to win the game. I think they win by 3-6 type of number, but at 6,900, 11%, kind of the hot not new, but he's pretty. I mean, everybody's talking about right now. He's doing extremely well, not only running but passing. But the running is that icing on the cake for him. And the only reason why I say fade him is that I'm getting almost half the ownership on Cam, $200 cheaper. And if I'm going to play that type of style, I'd rather take Cam this week than Allen and be a little bit different than the masses in that situation. Nothing against Allen. And you're really going to see me talk about a quarterback that's just a hard fade because none of these guys are owned that much. They're just not, they're just spread out, among the 7-8 guys that are normally up there that I can't say hard fade by any means, but I went Cam. And so I say fade Allen in that situation, probably does pretty good this week, but I think the rushing will be limited because of the speed of that defensive line. I think we'll keep him in check more than, let's see who he's played the first 2 weeks. It's not been the world beaters on defense. This will be the best defensive line by best front seven he's faced by far this year. So a little hesitant on him in general. So I'll take the fade there as he's the third highest owned right now. Value, it's getting harder and harder because most people lean towards these running quarterbacks, deservedly so, but I like Stafford. I like that I think a lot of people are going to go Arizona. The public chalk is on Arizona betting. This is the second highest point game. And I think unlike last week where Dallas and Atlanta was pretty clearly the best scoring potential and all that kind of stuff, Arizona and Detroit could outscore Seattle and Dallas, and it wouldn't shock me at all. And so there's a lot of game stacking here you could do to be different. And I think it'll still be popular, but I think most, as we see, Kyler's 18%, Stafford's 3.8%. You could go Stafford and run it back with, Stafford, especially if Galladay plays. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I think he's going to play. Everything I've read and kind of dug into, I think he's ready to come back. I think they held him out one more week last week, let him get fully healthy, and he's a beast. I think people may forget that. And you could go, Galladay, Swift is a good pivot, low-owned guy, high risk, high reward with him. And, go Hawkinson, you could do that, and then run it back with a wide receiver or run it back with like a Drake. I like Drake this week. I think people forgot about Drake or think he's not as good as he was. But when you look at his usage and kind of see everything, like he's been there. It's just not went his way so far. And so I'm not off Drake at all. So I think there's some opportunity to get into that, what is a 55-point game total, and, and not go the chalk. And so I like Stafford this week, 3.8%. My last one is Wentz. I like him, 4% against the Bengals. He's been god-awful. There's nothing on paper that tells you Wentz is going to do good. But if there was a time for him to bounce back and kind of have a good game at home, which I know home field isn't all that what it is now, I think Wentz could have a pretty good game this week. Plenty of targets. Sanders is back healthy. Jackson could have that. You know how he is. Twice, 3 times a year, he just has that breakout big game. This could be it. And so I'm not against getting some of that low-owned Philly love this week against a suspect D at best. Not only that, I think Cincinnati will be able to move the ball and do well against Philly's D. And so you could have a low-key kind of quiet shootout there that wasn't really on the radar, and you get Wentz at 5,800, 4% ownership. I like it a lot. Certainly a lot of risk. Don't get me wrong. But that's kind of where I'm at quarterbacks. Running backs, injuries, we got Jacobs. I don't think that's a big deal. Zach Moss, I think he plays. James White, that's not really an injury per se. It's more the family situation. I think we'll know that pretty clearly, probably even tomorrow or Saturday. Mozart, I think he's out. He's doubtful right now. I don't think he plays. Last thing I looked at before I did this a little while ago, but I don't think he plays, but he is not out on the last thing I looked at. Lindsey, I think he's out, but he's still doubtful on the last thing I looked at. Malcolm Brown, I think he plays, but he's questionable. And then Cam Akers may not, but he's questionable as well. So those are all things we're kind of looking at as we get closer to Sunday, and we'll talk about the audible. But that's kind of how I did not only my rankings that went out, but kind of went through these play fade and values with those guys. I don't think Jacobs is going to miss at all. Jacobs is my play. He's number 1 in total market share. He's number 4 in rushing market share. And these numbers are coming from our tools, gupscorner.com. Tools, if you want to upgrade, if you're a current member, now's the time to do it. I'm thoroughly impressed with how they came out so far. And it's just the beginning, but they're going to feed Jacobs. There's other the problem and probably frustrating part, especially if you played Showdown, like they got a lot of weapons. I don't know that I even really like Zay Jones, and Gruden's definitely willing to be unique in his play calling and get guys that you wouldn't think the ball at all as far as red zone and touchdown goes. Jacobs are workhorse though. So I think you got to take the good with the bad there. When you look at his market share and the time he's getting the ball, like as far as passing and receiving, he's number 1. Passing and rushing, he's number 1 in the entire NFL right now. Rushing only, he's number 4. So still great. When you're looking at the carries, I think it's a good spot for him. So he's my number 1 play of the week right now. 7,300, 8%. A lot of guys are going to be going to Zeke again. Certainly understand it. A lot of guys will be going to Sanders again. Certainly understand it. Henry against the very suspect Vikings. Rundy, certainly understand it. So still paying up. So I think that's why he's getting lower ownership at 8%. And New England's pretty good D, better secondary than run defense, in my opinion. And I like Jacob. He can get the ball out of the backfield as well. He's shown that. So I like Jacobs. My next play is Jonathan Taylor. So our big chalk of the week last week, it's a boost in price, $7,000 now. And all of a sudden he's 7.9% against the Jets. I don't get it. His usage was there last week. It's 11-point favorite. Certainly, I think without a doubt, even though Hines and all the guys are there, if they are winning this game and dominating, I think it only enhances him. They have the number 1 O-line versus D-line matchup when you look at PFF. And so I just expect it's a low total game with a high spread, which is typically you go dog there. And I'm leaning Jets betting wise just because you don't, just a lot of nuances there. But, if they're up by 10, 14, late third, fourth, Taylor's their workhorse now. I think he's just going to get fed the ball. Could bust one at any given time. We saw that at Wisconsin a lot. He's got that kind of juice to get off. And so I really like Taylor this week. And I'm getting him at, a fourth, almost a fifth of the ownership last week. I'll let everybody jump off that, and I'll jump on it. Zigmund Zag, like I say in the articles. Fade for me is Jarrett McKinnon. I get it, 4,900 against the Giants, 49ers. Most likely he's going to be getting a majority of the carries. Still a lot to be, figure out there with the 49ers deal. Wilson's going to be involved too. Could, he's pretty high owned as well. He could, take some red zone away from McKinnon. I'm just not going to eat the 4,900 22% guy. I'm just not going to do that this year. If he goes off, he goes off. But, Giants their D is hurting, obviously. And this could wind up being a hot, more passing type game than it is run. I don't think they're going to be I actually have the Giants as we'll get to it later, my dog of the week. So I think I think 49ers may be having to pass some, which downgrades McKinnon. Now, can he get his number? For sure. 4.9. That's why he's one of the highest owned on the board. Fade for me. I think there's better plays, and I can save money elsewhere with some of the things I like. 2 value plays as well. First is Connor. Came back last week, looked good, 6,700. So if you're kind of getting that area where you could stack some of these guys, he's 4% owned right now against Houston. You know, I think Pittsburgh probably controls that game for the most part. Watson's special, we know that, but Pittsburgh can be able to run the ball. And if Connors is healthy, which I'm going to assume he is based on last week's performance, like they normally feed the workhorse. I get it, Snell can come in, whatnot, but Connors could have a really big game, and at $6,700, I think is a great price. And at 4%, I'll eat that all day. So I like Connor. And then I like Carson. You know, he's 5% in that what should be the chalkiest game of the day, Seattle-Dallas. That's certainly a way to get into that game and be a little bit different, is maybe you fade Zeke, you go Carson, plug some wide receivers, maybe Dak, whatever you want to do. But when I get, you know, a guy that has paid off on touchdowns, he hasn't had as great of, you know, pure rushing and all that, but, you know, the Dallas defense is definitely beat up, as we've said. And so he could have a pretty good game. And Carson, I mean, they have been throwing with Russell, no doubt. But I will say that I think they may look at it and say, we don't want Dak in that offense to have the ball a lot. So maybe we scale back a little bit. And if we can run the ball on Dallas, which I think they can, this game may be a slower pace than what the people are predicting at 56 points total. If it turns into a shootout, you know, it is what it is. That's what it's predicted to be. But I think at 5%, they start pounding the rock, and Dallas against the run is hit or miss, especially with some of the injuries. I don't mind taking that chance, especially if I want to get into this game and be a little bit different. I don't know if I'm going to go there, but I certainly love the percentage on him. They're at home, which, you know, again, that doesn't mean as much as it used to, but it's something. $6,700, pretty cheap compared to some of those top guys that are certainly worth their price. But if you're trying to be a little bit different from the top of the board, I like Carson. Wide receiver, not as bad as last week, but still pretty bad as far as injuries go. Rieger's hurt again. He's doubtful, probably out. I saw he was out, but on the official one I looked at before I did everything, said doubtful. Crowder, doubtful. I think he's out. Kirk, I think he's fine. Edelman, I think he's fine. N'Keal Harry, I think he's fine. Juju, I think he's fine. Cooks, maybe could be out. I lean that he plays, but, you know, could be. Judy, I think he's fine. He played last week. It's probably the, you know, same type of deal. Deontay Johnson, again, just questionable. I think he's fine. Michael Thomas, I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. I don't think he plays. Now, that's a Monday night deal. I just want to throw it out there in case we get, or maybe it's Sunday night. I can't remember. Maybe it's Sunday night. But since he was on the injury report and we're going to play showdown and stuff like that, I want to throw it in there. DJ Chark, I think he plays. AJ Brown, probably 50-50. Galladay, I think Galladay plays this week. I think he makes his debut. Hopefully most people aren't even thinking about him, and we can take advantage of some low ownership on a high upside guy. Watkins, I think he plays. Again, that's probably more of a showdown deal. Julio, I think he plays, but we don't know for sure. I did everything assuming he was playing. He's my number 4 overall. Devontae, you know, again, I think that one's a Sunday night or Monday night type game. So I think it's Packers Saints Sunday night, and then maybe Chiefs Ravens Monday night. I'll note that next week. But I do all the injuries just because it matters on showdown and stuff like that. I think Adams will play, but you know, we can cover that more as we do showdown. My play this week, I'm going to go to Thielen, which is probably stupid. I did it last week a little bit. I think Minnesota probably wins, gets the quote-unquote upset. They're home. They're 1 o'clock Eastern. We know Kirk Cousins does massively better in that spot than normal. I like Tennessee, but I think Minnesota, man, this is pretty big for them. Like, they need this win. They're going to struggle to stop Henry, but I think they can take advantage of spreading the ball out, spreading the Titans out, maybe get some Cook involved in the passing game as well. And I just think Thielen has a big game, could have a big game. He's 12% ownership, which is, you know, kind of high, but he's not way up there compared to, you know, like Hopkins and Lockett and Metcalf, Cooper, all, you know, the same game, Dallas, Seattle. So I like Thielen there. $6,900. he's going to get a lot of targets, especially with Diggs gone now, and he has. I just it probably should go to gut feeling, but I do like Thielen as a play. Ridley going up against Fuller, probably one of the best matchups of the week. I like Ridley against Chicago. I think Chicago-Atlanta is a great game to target. I think you could have a really good offensive potential there as well. He's 7,200. If Julio doesn't play, that could affect it, but I'm assuming he is. $200 cheaper than Julio. I mean, this kid, I called it preseason. I was on a CBS deal with Will and said he was, one of my biggest prop bets of the year was him over on the passing yards. I wish I'd done the touching as well, or touchdowns as well. But I think he could have another big game. He's got a great matchup against Fuller. Fuller can't hold him. Bad matchup, and so I think Atlanta. Only deal is that they come out a little bit like not sleepy, but they're kind of hangover from that terrible loss. They should have won. They just get on the ball, they win that game against Dallas. But I try to handicap that in, maybe betting wise, but I think Ridley gets his. I like him a lot. My fade's going to be Cooper. I didn't know really going to go ownership wise, but he's 16%. So far, he's shown to be the highest of the three Cowboys, which kind of surprised me. I thought Lamb or Gallup. Gallup's the lowest, which, I have him. I mean, he's one of my guys I would play, like that Carson Gallup. Now you're getting some of the low-owned pieces that have just as much upside as anybody else. But Cooper being the highest there at 6,500. It's a road game. The narrative there. It's just, there's not a lot of guys that I think are true hard fades at wide receiver this week. I think they're all in good spots, Hopkins, those guys. But if I'm going to play a Dallas piece, I'd probably play Gallup and then Lamb and then Cooper last. And so Cooper was my fade this week. Value, Juju, Pittsburgh, 2.4% is the main deal. I just think that's super low ownership for him. I know he's questionable. Maybe it comes up, but, he's got the potential at, $6,600. He can definitely break a game open. He's got the deep threat. Houston does not have a great secondary at all. My biggest kind of holdup there, no matter how you do the Deontay Johnson or Juju, is if Houston doesn't make it a game, we know Pittsburgh will lean to the run and they will just run Connor. But I don't mind a Connor Juju stack, or even Deontay Johnson if you want to go that route. But Juju at 2.4% is great value to me. And then Galladay, I talked about it, 4.6%, $6,200. I think he'll have, if he plays, I think he has a great game. If he doesn't, my other kind of B value of that rent would be Allen Robinson, 9%. Played him last week, didn't do anything. I don't think I was the only one kind of expecting him to do stuff in the industry, let people down. Maybe people fall off of him. I told you that Chicago-Atlanta game I think could have some sparks. And so I'd go back to Robinson at 9%, which is, it's not super low owned, but in the wide receiver realm, for a guy that could be, the biggest day of the week, I like 9%. I can get some value there. Tight ends, injury concerns, more than you'd like. Henry, I think Henry plays. Waller, I think Waller plays. Jonnu Smith, I think he's 50-50. I did him as if he was playing, but I think he's 50-50. Kittle, surprisingly, looks like he could get in there. I mean, he's not out yet. I'd lean towards him not playing, especially on that field. That concerns are happening at, with New York, but I'd say, and then Doyle is question mark as well, which does come into play in my picks. My play is Henry. Actually, I think he plays. I like the matchup against Carolina's linebackers, the guys that he'd be on. I got him projected almost 12 points at 1.4% ownership and $4,800. I think is a great play this week, especially I'm fairly certain that Tyrod, I got poked in the lungs by my doctor, is not playing. So with Herbert playing, I like Henry a lot. And, I'm going to go that route, versus all these other guys. Save a little bit of money. I do think Ertz and even Waller is priced down compared to what we've seen, so I don't mind them. But I like Henry at $4,800. My fade is Hurst, although I'm kind of talking circles there. I do think that game has a chance to go off, but I just don't want to pay 13% ownership on Hayden Hurst because Atlanta, if everybody's healthy, they have so many weapons that he could easily go off or be forgotten, and not get much this week. And so to eat the chalk, do I think he's going to score well? Sure. But to eat the chalk there, I don't really think it's worth it. And there's many options here at tight end to be half or more the ownership. Tight end's tough to even have a fade, but if I had one, it would be him this week. My value, I don't really care which one I want. If Doyle plays, I'd go Doyle. He's 3%, $3,900. If not, I go back to Cox. Played him last week, pretty good. I think he could have a huge upside again, especially versus Jets. Probably a little bit touchdown dependent because if they get ahead of them a lot, maybe not a lot of passing. So a little bit worse in there. For the price, so I like Cox in the upside. Or Doyle, which if Doyle plays, he's probably going to start, be fine. If Doyle's out, then even better. I like Cox. Defense, one of the few weeks that I'm not going to get too cute here. My play is the Steelers. They're 4,000, technically not the highest price. The Colts are 100 or more. They're on a historic pace of pressuring the quarterback. We know Houston's O-line struggles at times to protect the passer. So, I'll pay the 4,000 this week, 5.6% ownership. You could get sacks, turnovers. Just all that pressure leads to a lot of potential big points. And there's not really a big value I like this week. There's one, which I'll talk about in a second. And so when you get up there, 35 to 4,000, you can find dollars elsewhere. And I think Steelers are heading above everybody else this week as far as total potential points. My value, if you don't want to pay up, is the Eagles against the Bengals. You still got a rookie quarterback on the road, quote unquote. They are on the road, but it's not as much as it is. $2,800. Haven't looked great, but I think at home they definitely have the advantage. You look at PFF rankings, huge advantage against the pass rush of the Bengals. And you still got a rookie. And I like Burrow. I think he's going to be great, but can make some mistakes, especially out of his comfort zone. They're only showing 1.3%, $2,800. So I like the Eagles as a value. My last 4 out/gut plays of the week. First one's Kareem Hunt. I think because the Redskins are going to be able to pressure Baker a lot, Hunt may come into more of the landscape of dump-offs out of the backfield. Chubb had a huge week last week, so a lot of people naturally will probably go to him. Hunt's at $800 less, a third of the ownership, with, I think, a lot of potential upside with the PPRs this week against a defense that likes to pressure the ball, pressure the quarterback, great defensive ends. I think Hunt could be more in the game plan than normal. Drake, I mentioned him earlier with Kyler. I think he's due. I hate the word due, but I think he's been there already. He just hasn't paid off. And so it's not like you're expecting him to do something he hasn't. I think his usage and stuff has been there. It just hasn't paid off for the big week yet, and I think it's coming. So I don't mind going back to Drake. He is a little bit chalky, 19%, $6,000. Save you some money there if you don't want to pay up. My next one is Metcalf. Dude's just a beast. And what he did to, the Patriots, best corner in the game, undoubtedly, unarguably, I think, and wasn't scared. He kind of pulled a zig, like, feed me, just throw me the ball. I got this guy. If he can do that against the Patriots there, I don't think there's a corner out there that can guard him. Obviously pace a game, and there's a lot of weapons in Seattle. He can certainly not have a big game, but I think as far as that high ceiling breakout type performance, he can do that against Dallas. And I like him. Lockett's like that safer cash. Like, I'm playing cash. I don't really do that. I'd probably go Lockett because his catch rate is a lot higher than Metcalf, but the ceiling, the big play potential is definitely more Metcalf. So I like him. Godwin, clear protocol. I think he does a great week with Brady. I'm hoping that his ownership kind of stays down where it's at, 6%-ish. He's 6,700. Evans is 6,800. With Brady, it's always tough to see where he's going to go. And he hadn't really had a whole cohesive unit yet to see, like, if everybody's healthy, who's he going to target. And I like Godwin. So if I can get him super low owned for a week against Broncos who are, hurting in general, you just hope they can keep it close and competitive where Tampa has to throw the ball, because they certainly have workhorses with Fournette and Ronald Jones that if they're up by 2 touchdowns, they don't have to throw it. So that's that's why it kept me from him being a play and put him in my last 4 out. But I definitely don't mind taking a look at him. So stacks of the week. I'm going to give 3. I used to give 2, but we used to have another, when I had another person 2 and 2. So I want to give one more. I think the game stack for me is Detroit, Arizona. I think you can get creative there with how you stack everybody in that game. Be a little bit different than the Dallas-Seattle game. Stafford, Galladay, Jones, maybe you throw Swift in there instead of Jones, or, maybe Galladay plays, but you don't think he's healthy. And so you go Jones, Swift, and you kind of get different there. And then I think you can run it back with Drake, Chris Kirk, who's not, he's showing 7% type ownership. Even Fitzgerald, if you want to go that route, showing 0.7 ownership at $4,600. I don't mind something like that. I like Drake the most. Edmonds, if you really want to. I mean, there's different ways to get it stacked in that game that I like. My next one is I like Jonathan Taylor, T.Y., and then either Cox or Doyle, whichever one winds up starting. I think that's a pretty good, unique mini stack that you can put with some of these other stacks. I think you could get around without having to get into the quarterback. I think you could have like Dak, Carson, Gallup, and then mini stack of Colts in there. I mean, something like that you eat some of that chalky game and then throw a stack that doesn't look very high owned, and the Colts aren't like just jumping off the board as far as ownership. I think T.Y. could get a lot of, he's 3% right now, $5,600. You get to save some money there. Can definitely get some usage out of him, and the PPR helps him because I think he can get a lot of touches this week. Campbell's out. We know that. And I don't hate Cox and Doyle. I would never play both of them, but just like last year, you had Ebron there. I mean, Cox has shown his athletic ability that he's going to be on the field still, even when Doyle's there. I like Cox even more if Doyle's out because then he is 100% there. But, you could get different pieces there for sure. And then kind of a mini stack number 3, I kind of mentioned earlier, Thielen and then Cook. I'm going to be a Cook guy all year. I'm not against him at all. I think Tennessee can give up some running. Cook could have a big game at home. Comfort's $7,600. I don't think I got him 12%. I may reduce that by Sunday because I don't know how many people are going to pay up $7,600 for him when all the other options that are out there, Miles Sanders, Drake, Carson, Connor, people, McKinnon, Mike Davis, Carolina, those kind of guys. I don't know how many lineups Cook's going to get into. So I think Cook Thielen as a 2-man stack is another great mini stack this week to put in with some. You got 12% Cook, 12% Thielen, and then put it in with some of these other big stacks that you're looking at. Betting wise, Super 7 spreads here. I'm going to go the Giants +4. I kind of mentioned that earlier, I think. And I'm going to go the Redskins +7. I think Cleveland wins. But I think Redskins keep it close enough, get a turnover or two, get some short field, able to run the ball a little bit. I think Gibson's high upside. Loved him at Memphis. I think F1 could get deep a couple times against Cleveland for sure. I just don't see a dominating performance by Cleveland. It may be a backdoor cover by the Redskins. I like Washington this week. I think coming off last week, the public's going to be on Cleveland, so it is what it is there. I like Redskins +7. My dog of the week, said earlier, the Giants. I think the Giants outright win this week against San Francisco. Anytime you get guys worried about going all out because of the field and the concerns, and they've seen that 2 of their guys already tear their knees, coupled with they've stayed on the road the entire time. They didn't go back to San Francisco. I really think the Giants not only cover the 4, but win outright this week. My survivor leans, pretty chalky. I mean, it's hard to – the 2 that I would lean 100%, I'd either go Indianapolis or Tampa Bay. I think those 2 are just outright win potential. I think those are 2 of my favorites this week. Not going to question Brady in that offense. Denver just beat up, injuries. We'll see how Driscoll does. I'll take Brady over Driscoll all day outright, and that's what we're talking about for survivor. And then the Colts, if you hadn't used them already against the Jets, although I'd lean the Jets if I'm going to bet +11, just because anytime you get an over-under that low plus a high spread, I typically lean the underdog. But outright, I think the Colts get it done, get the W, and move on. As always, join me Sunday, 11:15 Eastern time. If you didn't watch Smash, fill up those questions. Even if you're not going to be there, I'm there for you guys. Like, I don't need to be there. I got plenty shit to do. I got lineups to build, tweaking, research. I'm there strictly for you guys. It's live, 11:15 to 11:45 Eastern. That gives you 75 minutes to tinker afterwards. I get it. Church, everything else. You can't always get there. it really helps me get into the flow. You can start throwing questions in the live question Slack channel now, and they'll stay there most likely. Yeah, they should. They'll stay there till Sunday, and I'll have them prepped up for me, and that'll allow conversation pieces for me to look at, see what everybody's kind of asking already, get some notes made, and have a good discussion for 30 minutes. Inactives come out. If there's any last to the minute ones we need to know, I'll hit that up. It's Sunday morning, so I get it. Family time. I want to go spend time with my family as well. So I definitely need you guys participating in it, because everything I'm going to bring, I've already written in the content. We're putting out more content right now for the NFL than we've ever done by far. And so it's pretty much been covered. So I'm getting on there to answer your final questions, take a look at inactives, last minute tweaks and changes for me. Unfortunately, because of the weather last week, I jumped off of my core play of Mike Evans. That didn't work out too well for me. Like, I couldn't have done anything more wrong than I did last week. And I just chuckle at it and move on, right? Is what you got to do. The replay will be accessible. So say you get out of church at 12 Eastern, it'll be up there and you'll have an hour to watch it. So you can watch it back as you're building, doing last minute tweaks, all that kind of stuff. If this week's a little lighter, I may ask people, do you want me to go earlier, even though inactives won't be out, to give you guys more time to watch it if you're in church or something like that? And I'll go with whatever you guys want. You guys wanted E9 up earlier, so we did that. E9 is going to be hit or miss through the fall swing. It's really going to depend on the week and the activity and how people want it. Obviously, the Masters and all that big tournaments will do. But the weeks that, it's kind of all out there and there's not much to talk about, we'll pass on it, and we'll be full-fledged E9 again, obviously, once we get back to Sony Open, tournament champion, stuff like that. But we will do the Masters. We will do any big WGC, stuff like that. But you guys guide that. It's up to you guys. I'll be there as much as you guys want me to, that. Like I said, join Gups Corner now, code GC15 for 15% off any monthly and annual package. Our packages include everything. A lot of people that have joined here lately really didn't realize that. I've gotten a lot of DMs about, man, I just joined to get your bets. I didn't realize I get all the DFS stuff, every sports included, every content piece. And then there's two options. We really narrowed it down. We used to have all these kind of crazy options and it was confusing. And so there's two options. You can get all the content, everything you want for every sport, or you can get the full access. And really it's all the content that you would already get. And then you have full access to our tools, our lineup builder for NFL, college football, golf, all that stuff. And as we continue to build upon, the nice thing is once you get in and you lock in, as you can ask all the current members, some of these guys got in super cheap. And as we keep adding, their price don't change. Once you're in, you're locked in. You're locked up for that price. The capital and stuff we invest into it, that's out of us. We're going to hope to grow the community and it pays off, but we don't charge you more because we've added more. So it's a nice thing to get a part of. There's no better time to join in right now. We had a tremendous week last week across MMA, our cash for NFL. I'll put Ryan's article up against anybody in the industry. It's so good. Like, I don't play cash. I use my bankroll, what I would consider cash, for something else that I am what I consider better at to bankroll myself up. But Ryan has me wanting to play cash because I'm like, I don't know if I can lose. Like, it's so well done. And then the Slack is just amazing that it's hard to think you can't win in cash playing it. NBA's even been strong as we've been doing playoffs and all that. That's coming to a hedge. And then we'll fire up next season. MLB, Todd's been doing great. D-Rock was great. Obviously, he made the announcement that he left Gups Corner to handle some family issues. Hope to get him back at some time in the future. Wish him the best of luck. We brought him on to be our kind of, we need two people covering MLB and NBA. Those things are so everyday-ish that you need people to help you out, and he's done a great job. So hope to keep Todd on, bringing him back on next year. Had great response from him, and MLB's done a great job this year. So couldn't be a better time to join us. Appreciate it. I will see you guys live Sunday morning. I'll obviously be in Slack all weekend if you guys have questions before then. Fill up the live questions chat so we can have a good Sunday morning, 11:15 Eastern time for the Audible. Have a blessed week, and I'll see you Sunday. Thank you.